Hello and welcome to part 2 of the wall map frame project. Yesterday, after I turned off the cameras, I did a little bit of work. When last I showed you the frame, I had this end glued up. Although I changed my setup here for the fixture. It was kind of dumb the way I had it, just prying off of the clamp. So I got the idea of clamping a piece of wood and then going off of this end with this clamp. Because I don't have clamps that are long enough to span the entire length of the big side of the frame, I had to come up with something unique. And then I was sweeping up and I was just about ready to close up shop. And I thought, well, I have more clamps. Why don't I try to glue up this other side so I could do it all in one go? So I pulled out my other bar clamp. I did this side. I did the section with my really ancient old clamps those are the ones that I first started woodworking with, and created a stop block and pulled in these corners. And so now I've got all 4 corners glued up, and the thing I can do now is take off all the clamps. So let's do that now. So a couple of things to point out. I think I have a pretty nice base here with my 4 really cheesy sawhorses. they're plastic, but they're lightweight, and you can cut through them with a saw, which I've done on many occasions, and it doesn't hurt the saw. So anyway, I think I've got a pretty good base for me to work. I flipped the workpiece upside down, so we're looking at the back. I took all of my scrap pieces. Some of these scrap pieces are long enough, like this one, to be used again, and others are kind of not. So I made this box, and this will be like for firewood, so nothing goes to waste. I want to reinforce these corners. I do have glue and biscuits, which the glue, it pressed together really nicely. There's not much really any gap. It's probably stronger than the wood, but this is a very big frame and going to be under a lot of stress. Not when it's really hanging, but mostly when you are, when you're moving it from one to the other, it tends to get all twisty and wants to break. So I came up with these little brackets, which I think have a couple of really nice features. I think I'll put them right here, and they're rounded over. So what I want to do is draw a circle and then just relieve the wood, just one material thickness of the metal, and drop it in there. So this isn't like hanging, dragging on the wall. This is the wall side. Then also these are countersunk. So when I do put the screws in there, the screws are going to lay nice and flush. So I think this is just a really good, easy way to add a lot of strength to this wood. I'm going to mark that out and then get my router and do that to all 4 corners now. Now I noticed when I was drawing this out that this joint has a little bit of a lip here. I kind of want to get rid of this step. There's a step right there, and I'm gonna probably just sand the corners of the backside just so they're flat. But I'm gonna have to do a lot more sanding on the other side. There are some pretty rough spots. So I got a pretty aggressive 80 grit sandpaper here, and I'm just so let me retrace that now that it's flat, and then we'll start our router work. So I mentioned that this was rounded over, and that was a good thing. I kind of assume that we know why, because the router bit is going to be round and it's hard to do square corners. with it, but this is going to be easier. I think I kind of glossed over that bit, but I think you guys know what I was doing. All right, so it's router time. And if you see here, I just took this out of the cabinet, and it has a round over bit on there, and that's not going to work. We need a straight plunge bit. So let's change the bit. This one, however, might be really good for the inside of our frame. I think what I'm going to do is maybe a little bit bigger round over and use that step as a little bit of a feature. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so these are the wrenches that come with it. And we just have to grab the hold of the spindle back here, and then we'll kind of do that thing. Loosen that nut. The collet opens, and that bit comes right out. Let's go find some sort of an appropriate straight bit. Ooh, check this out. I don't want to go too big. Looks like this one's pretty well used already. Too big because it can't be bigger than the radius of this. So I'm thinking that like this one. So as I go around like that, boy, it looks like I've used it, huh? Anyway, let's do that. I don't want a really small one because then you're sitting there going all over the place. But if I do use this one, then I really can just relieve that material pretty quickly. What I'm looking for here is, I mean, you can measure using calipers and a little different, but easiest way is just to stick that on top of there. And once that is, just kind of feel it with your finger. And we'll tighten that up. Now for this, I'm definitely going to wear safety glasses and ear protection. For the sander, which I was using earlier, it's not that loud, so ear protection really isn't needed, but mask. So depending on which machine you're using, it's going to determine which PPE you need. So I didn't really get it as accurate as I probably could be, but it really doesn't need to be. Just all it needs to be is just a clearance for that bracket, and I think that's fine. If this was going to show, I probably would have spent a lot more time and been a lot more careful with it. Keep smiling, keep laughing, I'll be on your side forevermore. And that's what friends are for. Oh. Okay. So I could just screw this like, I don't know if you can see, but I could screw this like right in the center of the circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat over here to the far side a bit. I'm not screwed all the way in. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just slightly to the outside. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull this corner together. And then these I can just kind of more or less in the center. Didn't need any pilot holes because this wood is really soft. Did want to be mindful of the length of the screws so we don't go through the other side, obviously. But so what that's going to do is those screws are trying to pull the wood together against the bracket. And so and as you're working on a project like this, you'll start to get the idea of doing all of one step together, like sanding them all, then marking them all, then routering them all, kind of in a production fashion. It's much faster to do it that way than to keep changing tools all the time. Kind of do that for demonstration purposes, but normally what I would do is do like all one step and then all one step, kind of like I'm doing on these last two. All right, so now we want to talk about how we're going to hang this. I know we haven't finished it yet. We haven't really even turned it over and started to work on the front side, but we put the brackets in the four corners, so I think the corners are nice and reinforced. But what we really need to do is think about how we're going to hang this. There are a few different ways that we could hang this frame. We could just screw it in from the front and draw some screws, find out like where the studs are, screw it into the studs, and that would be really secure. Although I don't really want any screws in the front of it. Or we could put like a cable in the back, like a metal rope kind of thing, and you know how you would hang a traditional picture, and put something on each side, and then it would kind of hang. But my worry is the map is really up against the wall, and if this frame kind of hangs and dangles and maybe the bottom comes out a little bit from the wall, it's going to look really funny. So I need something that's like up against the wall, nice and secure. So I was thinking of lots of different things, and I have my bin on doors, windows, and hanging. I know you can't read that, but that's what that says. And this has all different kinds of ways to hang things and doors, and just all my junk. Always keep everything. And in there, I was able to find two of these, which is exactly what I was looking for. So if you can kind of look at that, it's a keyhole slot. And what it does is there's, you put a screw in the wall. So you put a screw in the wall. This gets embedded into the frame, and then it actually goes like this. And then your screw is in the wall, and you go in to hang it, and you put it in the big side, and then it goes into the small side and kind of slides down. And there's like little slides on the inside here. They're pretty cool. So it kind of tightens itself up. Like as you put it in and you pull it down into that slot, it'll tighten itself up right to the wall. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to inset these on each side. So I'm going to put one of these keyholes right around here on each side. So I'll put a screw in the wall, and then the screw head will go in there and slide on this. So it's really important that I get this accurate, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure where this is, and then I'm going to transfer those measurements to the wall. That's where I'm going to put my screws. And if I have two screws that are 6 feet apart and they're off by 1/16 of an inch, the head of the screw is not going to go in there. So that's what I'm talking about being pretty accurate. So I've decided that I'm going to go 7 inches down. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go 7 right there, and I'm putting a little tension in the straight edge. Let's do this right across like that. Okay, so the 1, 2 and a half, and we're going to put this at 1 1/4, just right here. Anyway, that is my 7 inches down and 1 1/4 from this side. Okay, so that's going to be what we're going to do. So this thing, make sure that it's the right side up because the big end goes towards the bottom, and then I don't want it here. I want the center of this hole, think of a hole right here. That's where the screw is going to ride to be right. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark let's do a dimension line to here is 7.0. And then this is my center line, CL. That lets everybody know that that's my center line. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I will be able to measure from the wall. Actually, we're gonna do this, right? Because we want, so this is just minus 2.5, so that's 4.5. 4.50. So let's see how close we are. Yeah, pretty darn close. So what I can do is from that inside of the edge of the map, I can just measure down 4.5 inches and then measure over to my center line 1.25 inches. So let's do, it's okay for me to put notes on here because nobody's gonna see this. So this is 1 1/4. Right there. There we go. So, you know, a few days from now when I go to put the screws up, I can see this, okay, I need to go down there from there and there. And then what I can do is put my screws in the wall accurately. Then I'm also going to double check my measurement from there to there. So to get the dimension between that point and the same point over there is I can measure, take my tape measure and put it on the far side and measure the near side of this. And this is just about 78.5, pretty close, within a little bit. And so that's gonna be my dimension that I'm gonna do, 78.5, which makes sense because I should be at 81 minus 2.5. So that will be from center to center because this dimension is the same as that dimension. So that's an easy way of doing it. So let's write that down, 78.5. So if I write here, make a line, and then do this, and then this one, 78.5. And so that will be my dimension that I'll put my screws apart. So I'll measure down 4.5, and then I'll put my first mark in 1.25 inches. Then from there, I measure down 4.5 on the other side, but then I don't measure in 1.25 inches. I'm going to measure 78.5 over to that one, and that'll give me a pretty good dimension. Okay, let's see if this will fit in here. Oh, nice and tight. Like this. Yeah. Yep, that's gonna fit in there nice and tight. Cool. All right, so that kind of does it for part 2 of this project. I think what I'm going to do is turn this around like here. So see you next time on Scott's Garage. Thanks for watching.